What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Rung Peter Sports Week 8 preview show. Kind of switched the format up a little bit last week. We were doing a little bit of a review and a preview. Well, we have the Monday show with JSU, K-Falic. They're kind of doing the review. We're going to focus on the preview and kind of break down some initial thoughts on the Week 8 slate, some takeaways from Week 7. And we'll go through and kind of talk about it all. I'm joined by my two boys, Title, Mangone, what's going on? Any initial takeaways on this Week 8 slate, anything that kind of stands out to you?
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting slate for sure. I think it was one of those slates where I made some mistakes, but like you just have to kind of say, hey, I made some mistakes. It's okay. And luckily, those mistakes didn't cost me. They cost me from winning more money, but I definitely made mistakes, I think, for sure. Overall, though, the week was fine. No, not a huge loss, not a huge gain. And we move on to this week and we just keep getting better.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, getting better. Title, any Week 7 takeaways that you're able to kind of pinpoint from last week?
I'm very similar to Mangone. I also made some mistakes myself, and I got bailed out by Cooper Kupp. People still aren't playing Cooper Kupp. I don't know why. And then Chris Godwin too. So my big mistake was the Waller situation. I was leaning more so he'd play a little bit, but I locked myself. I played Kelsey on DraftKings, which I was 2v2 I was debating. I thought it was really, really close. But in hindsight, one of them was locking Kelsey, and then you have an afternoon game. The other one was you're backload, and both the guys, DeAndre Swift and someone else, was in the last game too. And I should have just backloaded and waited for the Waller news and had more positional flexibility. So I made money too. I could have made a lot more for sure. I got bailed out, but I mean, this is why we talk about stuff. Like I definitely made a mistake, and it happens, but it was a mistake that I easily could have prevented. So if there's news, people are still questionable. Similar to NBA, we talk about it all the time. NBA is more prominent because it's every day, more news and stuff. But there's big news late that doesn't go up to lock. You have late swaps. Sometimes it's better just to wait for the later games, and you can make decisions that way. So I regret it. Cooper Kupp bailed me out on both sites, and I'll take it.
Yeah, based on that point that you said, Ted, I want to talk about it. I think, like, yeah, sure, we can talk about this play looks this week, but like this will be the most important thing I'd probably say here on the show today. When you look at news, like last night, for instance, I looked at things and George Hill was on a lot of teams, right? Because the Bucks had value, right? He was 5K. You could jam in a lot of good studs. Like I looked at him and then I looked at a guy like Frank Jackson, who was 3.5K. And I said, well, we have news on Jeremy Grant is out. We could get news that Kelly Olynyk could start. Hamid Diallo could start, right? We could have Josh Jackson start. There's so many things that could happen. Also, later on, there were other plays that you could have went to. And I just was like, is George Hill that much of a priority, right? Was Darren Waller that much of a priority for you? Now, maybe he was. It just depends. I think one of the biggest things we need to be doing in DFS is looking at what are the alternatives if you have a questionable guy, and how important is that to go that player? Do you really think he's that much of a priority? Now, if that questionable guy is someone like Giannis, right, who obviously could crush an absolutely amazing matchup, that's fine. But look at the alternatives. The alternatives, are they James Harden, who's in a good spot? Are they LeBron James in a good spot? Or maybe there's no alternatives up at the top, and that's why you're eating that play. So I think that's just really important to talk about, is when you're making these swaps and looking for guys that are questionable, especially as we get guys that are banged up during the NFL season later on, how much better of a play is that? Like, how much better is Tyreek Hill versus Cooper Kupp? How much better is Devontae Adams versus this guy? I think that's just super important to talk about.
Yeah, and it wasn't even necessarily like I wanted Waller. It's just like when Waller's out, Hunter Renfrow gets a big boost. Foster Moreau is sitting down there way too cheap, and now it becomes a very good play. Like you can change your whole roster construction, especially last week. I mean, I did play Kelsey. The only other guy I played in the 1 p.m. games was Rashad Bateman, who I thought was way too cheap too. But it was one of those weeks where I was already backloading the afternoon games, and I thought that was like the best plays anyway, whereas Kelsey definitely wasn't a must. I love the spot he was in. I love the ceiling. But yeah, I mean, Waller out, I would have loved Foster Moreau at min price, and that would have got pretty much, and then I would have got up from somebody else and paid up. And then if you didn't have Cooper Kupp, you could have played a Kupp or something like that. So not necessarily only about that guy, and if you want to play him or not, like what does he do for everyone else? And Renfrow and Foster Moreau got big bumps that you could have played, and maybe you didn't because I locked myself into that spot.
Yeah, and I mean the big takeaway from last week was obviously the Chiefs situation and how bad they looked. I mean, they're obviously very popular. They're always popular on main slates that they're on. And man, they disappointed. Something's going on with Tyreek Hill. I mean, there's no way he's 100%. Kelsey actually looked a little, I don't know, banged up, just not into it. He just looked tired at the end of
He
that
looked
game.
mad. He looks like mad
mad.
in his, I mean, he had 15 targets, but they weren't really close. Like, I noticed the same thing. He wasn't running every route 100%.
No.
He has to got taken out. Like something is going on. He was frustrated for sure.
Yeah, so I mean they're not on the main slate. And that's another point for week 8. We're missing some of the big teams again on this main slate. The Ravens are on bye, Raiders are on bye. Packers Cardinals are on Thursday night, so you take away 2 big offenses there that won't be on the main slate. We have the Chiefs obviously on Monday night, then the Cowboys Vikings on Sunday night. So some of the bigger teams are not on this slate. That was pretty similar to, was it maybe 2 weeks ago where we were missing a lot of the main offenses. So you kind of go through and start looking at some of the guys on these slates for week 8. And, it's not the big names that we typically see. At quarterback, the top names are going to be like Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, no Patrick Mahomes, no Aaron Rodgers, no Dak Prescott, no Kyler Murray. So it looks a little different this week than it did last week. A couple takeaways though, just to go back a little bit, just on some of these teams in general. Panthers, I mean, have just completely fallen off. I mean, it's crazy, but they started 3-0 and have just completely fallen apart. I know Hubbard was a guy that people were looking at last week. I looked at him a little bit on DraftKings. I ended up bailing on him last minute, got up to Fournette, thank God. But all their offensive pieces have taken a massive step back, including DJ Moore, Mangone's boy, Robbie Anderson, just all the targets in the world. I mean, the numbers are astonishing, actually, if you look at the number of targets and what he's actually done. Mangone, we're just done, right? We're officially done at this point.
So Hoop, here's my problem with it. Like I think I played him 4 weeks. Like actually I put him, and that's a lot to put in your lineup, right? Like 4 times of the 7 weeks we've had. And I've cashed 2 of them in tournaments. So I don't know. Like it's helped work in the equation. I don't know who else I could have went, right? But it's got
someone better than him. You could have been somewhere better than him.
Well, I mean, I got 8 to 1 week. I don't know.
Just think if you would have subbed in someone over him, the results
could have shifted.
What 4.8K receivers were good? T. Higgins, like go through them. Try to figure out which one was good.
I'll go look, but someone's going to be 4 or 5 points or whatever he did. Like he's getting all the opportunity. I think that also shows how good McCaffrey is. And he makes that whole offense how much he makes everyone else better because you can dump it off.
It's close to 40 targets in the last 4 games and a total of 6, 11, 13 catches for, I think it's roughly about 100 yards. So 40 targets, and he's turned that into 13 catches for 100 yards. It literally defies logic. I mean, I am willing to bet there's not been a similar situation where a guy's gotten 40 targets and done less with those 40 targets. It hasn't been like a cash game play. It's just a thought that obviously popped up.
I'm going to go the other way. There's no way it can continue. It's going to get better. Like it can't get worse. So I know this week at least, like maybe this is the last week coming up. More than likely in tournaments, as long as it doesn't mess up my stack, right? Because stack is number 1 the priority for me. If it doesn't mess up my stack, I am playing him in the dome against Atlanta. I'm sorry. That is a great spot. I'm just doing it. I don't care. But it just has to not mess up my stack because when it comes to NFL DFS Hoop, right, the stack is the most important thing I want to get right. And last week, I wanted to get Brady, I wanted to get Evans, and I wanted to get Godwin in there. And, it worked out. So I'm going to keep making sure I prioritize the stack that I want.
5-7 for Robbie on FanDuel, 4-7 on DK. So he's still there. Oh my gosh, Allen Robinson is down to 5-6 on FanDuel. Wow, that's Fields is a disaster. Like maybe he turns it around at some point. I know it's a tough spot against the Bucs, but man, does he look like he sucks.
Their line sucks too.
Everything.
The whole Nagy's awful. Like I'm not gonna write him off already, but he hasn't done anything. His line sucks. Nagy sucks. I'll say the one guy that looks impressive is Herbert, their running back. Like he outsnapped Damian Williams. And Obviously, Dave Montgomery's in the conversation when he's healthy, but that Herbert guy looks really good. Pretty much the only bright spot I see on that team.
Yeah, I mean the Herbert thing. I mean, I thought he'd at least. I thought he'd be maybe like a mini Jalen Hurts, where they're obviously going to be playing from behind. He could grind out, rushing touchdown here and there. Nice 15 to 16 floor fantasy point wise. Just has not been the case at all for him. Obviously, I mean he's not a guy that anyone's been playing for fantasy purposes, but just wanted to kind of point that out. Mangone, any other Week 7 takeaways, any Week 8 injury things that we're kind of waiting on to see shake out?
The only thing I'll mention is I guess it's, we're 7 weeks in, so like, we got to make some adjustments, right? We just can't, like, I guess one example is you just can't keep saying, hey, Kansas City is going to be fine. They're going to be fine. I mean, I think they will be fine in the long run. I do think I'm with you on the injury thing. I think they're just really banged up and they have a lot going on with that. So that's more of my worry with them. And I don't know. I just want to make sure I'm adjusting, right? Like, listen, if you've just been fading Cooper Kupp, like, I don't know, it's probably not a good idea to keep doing it. Now, maybe this could be the week. I don't know what spot they're in or what the price tag is, right? So obviously take that all into account, but don't think that like what a player is doing is just going to naturally change. I do think Cooper Kupp will see some regression though, but he's still going to be great, right? I'm expecting, I was even thinking about the other day, like it's going to be the NFC Championship. We're playing showdown slates and like we're slamming Cooper Kupp in the captain spot. I mean, we're just going to be playing this guy a lot this year. It's clear.
Yeah, I mean, he looks absolutely phenomenal. I mean, there's a clear tier 1 at the wide receiver position, and it's, Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams. And, I know I every week in the playbook, I put Devontae Adams as an RPS tag. And one of the first things I say is Devontae Adams is the best wide receiver in football. I am no longer going to be putting that in the playbook anymore. And yes, I think Devontae Adams is absolutely elite. But there's now a conversation to be had in terms of fantasy purposes between Devontae and Cooper Kupp. This week we don't have to worry about that. Devontae Adams, well, I guess I don't even know. Is he going to play? I mean, the whole he tested positive.
It's on Thursday too.
Yeah, so he'll probably. It's Thursday game. Obviously, that doesn't matter for this main slate, but he's likely to miss that game. I'd assume he misses.
Another one last takeaway I'm going to mention, like. Just honestly, just play Brady and his receivers like almost every week until Gronk's at least back, right? Because my thing with the Bucs is I think they're very predictable right now because they don't have Gronk there. I think it's clear when Brady gets down there, he is throwing and like, yes, if Cameron Braid or OJ Howard steals one, that's fine. Everyone has guys that
he was trying for Braid. He was trying so hard for Braid in that game. It didn't work out.
He was, and then it just ended up being Big Mike, but I don't know. I just think that there's such a even when they're up, right? You don't have to worry about the game interacting. They're going to put up points. They're not going to put up like 13 points. It just doesn't happen. And I think people are going to be worried to play like the Bucs this week against the Saints. They're going to be like, oh man, that game could be more of a grind. The Saints defense is decent. I don't care. I'm just going to keep playing these guys, especially if Antonio Brown happens to be out again. It's clear it's going to go to those two guys. It's not like Tyler Johnson is just going to emerge and be like a clear Antonio Brown in that role, right? He'll still get some work, but Mike Evans will be the alpha. Chris Godwin will be there too, getting some work within the zone, and it's just going to dominate.
Yeah, and very encouraging to see. I mean, they're up 30 at the end of the third quarter, and Tom Brady's still in there, going for touchdowns. Like, there's not many teams that would be doing that. Very encouraging for DFS. All right, before
he's
we
going
get in,
the MVP hoop. He's going.
Yeah, well, no, he really. I mean, that's a narrative I'm definitely buying into. I mean, he's going for it. He's going for all these touchdowns. It's very clear at this point. I mean, it is very, and they're good enough where that can happen, and Leonard Fournette can still be a very viable running back. I mean, there's just so much to go around in that offense right now, especially when these guys are a little dinged up. Title.
He's also hyping up your NFTs on the Manning cast yesterday. I don't know if you saw that. He's shilling your stuff a little bit too. MVP shilling it could be a good one.
He did that. He talked up I didn't see the NFTs. I heard him talk about Bitcoin, but I didn't see the NFT talk.
Guy caught a 600 touchdown, threw in the stands or something, and Brady and FTX traded a Bitcoin for him for the football. So. He was definitely chilling the cryptocurrency in the NFT world yesterday.
The guy wants a round of golf with Brady as well. That was part of the agreement. So
hey, he should. That was nice of him.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. Before we get into kind of breaking down some of the pricing in week 8, just want to remind you guys, this is actually the last day for the promo RPS NBA 15. If you use that promo code at checkout on a monthly package, you get 15% off your monthly price month after month, as long as you don't ever cancel your subscription. So if you stay on board with us here at Run Pure Sports, you'll get 15% off every month using that promo code RPS NBA 15. And the one thing that we always talk about, all sports, one price. And I'm about to show you and talk to you about why that is so important and why it can be just a huge asset for you moving forward. We have some big wins across the industry in our members never win segment here, basically in every single DFS sport that's out there. The first one here on the list is a college football win from our boy, Tway Rich, I believe is how you would pronounce his name, $2,600 in college football. We had a PGA, John Galt, $7,500. EPL and the big soccer win, Russell, 28,000. Title, you covered this one yesterday, the esports win from Lions Club, 35K. I was like, man, I can't believe the prize pools in esports are this high.
It wasn't a qualifier. It wasn't a qualifier either. I actually looked, and it was actually their main. It must have been Worlds or I don't know what it was, because I grinded League of Legends during COVID, but I did not know 50K was up top still.
Yeah, because was this a split? I believe. I think it was a split
two-way
prize.
split.
So yeah, it was a $50,000 top prize in esports. So congratulations to Lion Cubs. MLB, Phil Rafi took down 50K. I believe he beat out BigT at the end for this one. I know BigT was towards the top in this contest, and Phil Rafi kind of passed him up at the end for 50K.
Kyle Tucker.
Tucker
homer.
Tucker. Yeah, that was the Tucker game. NFL, we had some big wins. Drew Anas, $8,600. Chief U, 17,500. Okie Horn, 17,000 in NFL. And then we had the big NBA win, Amatic, AMITC. I don't know how you pronounce that, but $200,000 in NBA. Congratulations to all the winners. And like I said, if you want to, join this movement, it's RPS NBA 15. That gets you 15% off your monthly payment here at Run Pure Sports for life, as long as you don't cancel. So come join us, and let's start running Pure. All right, now let's go ahead and move into some week 8 pricing. We're going to start on the FanDuel side. And kind of just go through and talk about some things that stand out. Title, I'm going to toss it over to you. Give me a little rundown here. You can go position by position or whatever you really want to do here on FanDuel.
Yeah, I'll go by position and make it easy. So first thing I always do is I look at the over-unders on the slate. So the Buffalo, they have 49.5 total over-under. The Titans, Colts have a 49.5 over under. Then you got the Buccaneers 50.5, the Cowboys Vikings on Sunday night. So those are the only 3 that are about 50.5. The Saints, the Bills, and then the Titans. It's going to be a lower scoring week is how I see it. The quarterbacks, like you mentioned, the big ones aren't on the slate. Kyler Murray's Thursday night, Aaron Rodgers Thursday night, Dallas is on Sunday night, the Chiefs are Monday night. So that takes away a lot of stuff. Josh Allen's the one that just stands out right away for me. I play him pretty much every week. Obviously, it's only Tuesday. Who knows if I will? But Jalen Hurts is 8,400. Josh Allen's 8,800. I just don't think that's a big enough price difference. If anything, Justin Herbert at 7,900 is interesting, but I don't love picking on the Patriots. They play a slow tempo. I pretty much always pay up at quarterback, or at least I have every week so far in FanDuel. Josh Allen pretty much is my guy as of now. That obviously could change, but I think it's pretty much just Josh Allen.
Yeah, not to cut into you, but I think this week sets up as a good natural hedge type week, because those two guys, there's a much bigger difference. I believe it's $900 on DraftKings between those two. So we'll talk about that when we get to the DraftKings side. But this could be one of those natural hedge weeks where we talk about it. Where we talked about, and we've talked about in the past, where Josh Allen, maybe play him on FanDuel, and then on DraftKings maybe save that $900 and go with Hurts.
Yeah, I played Jalen Hurts last week too, just because I like Lamar and Mahomes stuff better, but the price difference, DraftKings pricing has been a little tighter. The 900 goes a long way, so I think that he'd be my lean on DraftKings. Josh Allen, FanDuel. Looking at running backs, the big news we do have: Miles Sanders left last week pretty early, and the ankle injury didn't look good. It looks week to week, but I don't expect him to play. So then we got Kenneth Gainwell that comes right in the equation. He's 5,900. He's a pretty good running back too, can catch the ball to the backfield. So that's an interesting value and an injury to look at this week. Eli Mitchell, he gets the benefit of playing in a primetime game. So he's only 5,800. He had over 100 yards last week. He's pretty much taken over as the guy. I think that's too cheap. Alvin Kamara, looking at the spend ups, like Derrick Henry's 10.5. Alvin Kamara is 8.4K. He does get the Buccaneers, but we saw yesterday, like his usage is just insane at the running back position. 8.4K seems way too cheap. Looking at him, Darrell Henderson at 7.7 against Houston, DeAndre Swift 7.9 against Philly. I think those are good prices. Chuba Hubbard at 6,600. He gets the matchup against Atlanta. So like Mangone was talking about Robbie Anderson, like you can't get a better matchup against Atlanta. So I think his price at 6,600 is interesting. Couple guys in all tiers, but like I don't see myself playing Derrick Henry against the Colts over Kamara as a pay up. Couple good value options, like I mentioned. Wide receiver Stephon Diggs is down there at 7,300 only. I have Allen. I know you don't have to correlate and pair them in cash games, but Diggs just seems way too cheap. You're playing Allen. You're expecting Diggs to get back on track. He hasn't had the best start to the year, but that price at 7,300 is as cheap as you'll probably ever see. A couple other guys, Calvin Ridley at 7K. DJ Moore, 7.7. Keenan Allen down there at 6.9, I think is interesting in the mid-tier. Cooper Kupp's always available, 9,200. If you're spending up for a wide receiver, it's definitely got to be Kupp, especially with Adams not on the slate. But I don't think he's a given. I mean, 9,200 is expensive as we've seen a receiver this year on FanDuel. So he'd be interesting. And then the last guy, Brandon Cooks, is sitting there at 6K. I think that's too cheap. Jacoby Myers, 5.7. I would lean Cooks in that situation, though. Going over to tight end, I mean, we don't have the big boys on the slate. Kelsey's not on the slate. Waller's not on the slate. You're going to be playing Kyle Pitts at 6,800. I wouldn't mind him. Hawkinson at 6.2. Fant, Goddard. Like, tight end's a really weak position, so it's definitely not going to be one I'm prioritizing and filling out first, but going to be somewhere in the mid-tier, which maybe allows you to spend up for a Cooper Kupp or something like that. And then defense, I don't really care about defense.
Yeah, defense, it's kind of the same thing. There is one that kind of, the Bills, I think, are 3-3, and that's typically more than I paid for defense. I mean, last week we had the Cardinals at 3-1, and, kind of just jammed them in.
I agreed with that. At FanDuel, I haven't really jammed anyone in this year. I agreed last year. Mango and Tatum on the cash chart too. I thought that was the first thing you plugged in. So I guess this week nothing's standing out as much. But some weeks you do plug it in. That's a good point.
Yeah, like I said, the Bills at 3-3, I do like, but I mean
on DraftKings, FanDuel they're 4-7 on FanDuel.
Yeah, 3-3 on DK. I have we are talking FanDuel. You're right, but 3-3 on DK kind of stands out a little bit. I think you covered it good on the FanDuel side. Tight end is the one spot that's kind of I guess a disaster. We're missing our key guys. I mean, we're missing Kelsey. We're missing Waller. Goddard at 5.9, I think is pretty interesting. Pitts, like you said, Hawkinson, just a lot of guys that seem similar. Like even Hunter Henry, he's been scoring some touchdowns. I think he's pretty interesting. But a lot of solid plays at all different price points. I think this week. Quarterback, I'm with you. You probably just go ahead and spend up. Josh Allen kind of seems like the guy now. We'll narrow it down obviously as the week goes on. Mangone, anything to add here to the FanDuel conversation, and then go ahead and hop into DK.
I think you guys talked about it pretty well. I agree with like title start. Like I look at the totals and I try to like figure out, hey, like what kind of week is it going to be? And listen, there's not like this like week where it's like, hey, like we got all these great games. I mean, it's definitely rough. It's not like last week where there's all these lopsided games too. There's some on the slate, but that's definitely something that I noticed when kind of breaking it all down. It's not your typical week. Josh Allen, obviously on DK would be great. Jalen Hurts at 7.2 feels like a guy that people will gravitate towards a bit. One guy that I'm going to look at a little, and it depends on the pricing and if it's tight on DraftKings, is like Carson Wentz at 5.7. I don't hate. It is a 49 total. It is the second game that these two division rivals are playing. And sometimes that leads to like the lower scoring games because these teams know each other well. And after the first time of seeing each other, it can kind of help. So that's something to notice there. And I don't know if I don't go up to like let's say I don't go up to Jalen Hurts, at least in cash games. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just better to go all the way down. Like maybe Jared Goff against Philly isn't crazy. I don't know. It's definitely a bit of a rough week when looking at it all at the quarterback position if you're not spending all the way at the top. So that's definitely something that I noticed. When you go to the running backs, of course, it's like running backs are always banged up, and Derrick Henry is at 8-9, and I couldn't get him last week, and that's because of how deep the position was in the 6K range, right? And the position is still good in the 6K range, but some of those guys that we liked are up in the 7K range, right? We liked Jonathan Taylor a couple weeks ago. He's now at 7-1. Austin Eckler was in the low sevens. Now he's at 7-9. Joe Mixon's at 6-9. Swift's at 7-1. You do have Henderson at 6-5, and you got Fournette at 6-3. So those are still some really good plays that you can go to. And even Gibson's down at 5-7, but who knows when that shin is going to flare up. And Chuba Hubbard, if there's no McCaffrey, you can definitely go him at 6K. So there are options here that you can kind of take a shot on, but it's not as strong as last week. So maybe it is a week we go up and get Derrick Henry. Obviously, injury news is going to matter throughout the week. Miles Sanders is someone who's probably going to be out. And Kenneth Gainwell's 5K. I mean, Hoop, I think you're going to see Jalen Hurts and Kenneth Gainwell get a lot of ownership because, one, Detroit's bad against the run, and two, you're going to see Gainwell in there a lot. I think you might see a lot of like the read option between Hurts and Gainwell against this Lions defense. I mean, you're a Detroit guy. I'm sure you've seen them a ton. What do you think? Is that a strong take on that? And can we play them both together?
Yeah, you can play them together. I mean, it's an indoor game too, and that's kind of, it's turning into that point of the season where these guys playing in a dome might have a little bit of an advantage. And speed guys like Hurts could definitely benefit. Yeah, you can play them both. I mean, they're both value price tags, I'd say. So I'd be fine playing both those guys. What's Gainwell's price on DK? I'm not seeing it on here.
Gainwell's 5K, which is
5,
especially PPR site, right? Because if they do use him a lot, like they might even like do a lot of read pass option where it could lead to Gainwell getting dump offs even more too.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, he'd certainly be in play. You have to imagine that Sanders is going to sit. I mean, the big decision again, Derrick Henry's probably out of reach on FanDuel, but on DK where he's 8.9K, we don't have Devontae Adams, we don't have tight ends to really pay up for. I think Derrick Henry is a good starting point. Kind of ran badly. I mean, imagine a game where the Titans win by more than 3 touchdowns and Derrick Henry doesn't have like 30. I mean, it was a weird week. AJ Brown had the big week. Ryan Tannehill had the rushing touchdown. I think this could be a big week for Henry. 8-9, good price tag. Darrell Henderson, like you mentioned, good price tag. Going to be a lot of different ways to go at this position, but I'm with you on the Gainwell thing.
Why didn't DK touch Henderson's price? Like, it didn't do anything, and he's clearly. I think he's one of he's a plug and play. It looks like at first glance. 6.5. I don't understand.
Who runs better than the Rams? They get the freaking Lions, and then they get to travel to Houston. I mean, what a solid back to back game set.
It's what happens when you're like really bad in your division, right? You have Jared Goff, and you make that big quarterback trade. It's what happened with the Bucks, right? When they had then when the Patriots went and they had Winston at the Bucks, and then Brady went over. I mean, it's definitely really helpful for your schedule. You get some really kind games along the way, and it's going to work out really well for the Rams this year.
Yeah, survivor pool for you're still in that, right?
Yeah, I think it's Rams. They are a team. You got to look and see the schedule. Like, do you want to save them or not? Right. Yeah. I think because they're a team that feels
they have to have some tougher games coming up. I mean, they have to.
Yeah, I did look. I think one reason I went the Cardinals last week was because the Cardinals looked like a team like you just get them out of the way now. They are.
I went Cardinals.
I went Cardinals too.
Yeah,
20 point favorites. It's not. It wasn't the hardest decision.
Well, it wasn't just that. I think the big thing with it was I don't think you wanted to save the Cardinals in Survivor because, like, listen, the Cardinals aren't going 16-0, right? They got some losses that will be coming. I don't know when they are, but you wouldn't be shocked if they lose like a game where maybe like you get down all the way to like week 15 Hoop and like you're like, well, the Cardinals are 6-point favorites and like you're just kind of trying to figure it out and like they might lose like a team that they shouldn't lose to because Kyler's banged up, right? There's just like little things I think that it made sense just to go to the Cardinals based on schedule. So I like to look ahead at the schedule. So that's something I'll probably do before. But yeah, the Rams seem like the most obvious one on the board there.
What about the Bengals? I know this isn't Survivor show, but Bengals at 10, I think they're interesting this week in Survivor.
That's another one. I looked at their schedule already, and it seemed like it's good to kind of get them out of the way.
Yeah, they have division games are always tough.
Yeah, they don't have games along the way that you're like, okay, like it's like a clear cut, they're gonna win. Like, sure, maybe they'll get like a Jaguars, or maybe the Steelers if Big Ben is out, right? You could get a good spot for it, but that's not a game you're like in love with for sure. But yeah, I mean, we talk Survivor enough, I think, for sure. I love talking it though. This is my first year I've gotten like kind of deep into it, and I think it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of
I've
strategy.
actually on a
I
couple of
love
my teams, I think I've used the Bengals. I used them against the Jaguars. That was actually a close game. I don't know if I got a few teams, but I think I've used the Bengals on a couple of them.
Patriots just squeaked by a couple weeks, like 2 weeks ago, I think it was. That was lucky for me.
I was going to use the Patriots last week and save the Cardinals, but then I realized there was no need to save them. I was like, you don't need to save it. And the Patriots have a couple down the line where you'll feel good about them, so it's okay. Let's see. So let's talk receiver here, because man, Cooper Kupp is 9K. And then like the next closest guy is Stephon Diggs at 8.1K. And of course, you expect the Bills to be leading a ton, and they do even pass when they're up, right? Which is kind of nice. I think Diggs is still in play, but of course, you want to try and probably find the money up to Cooper Kupp more than likely. Mike Williams up at 7.7, probably can't go there. The next guy that sticks out to me, I mean, yeah, Jamar Chase is expensive, but in tournaments, you could definitely play him. You see a lot of guys in the 6K range. And I've talked about this every week, right? The 6K range is just loaded with guys that have the ceiling of guys even like Cooper Kupp. They can touch Cooper Kupp's ceiling, right? AJ Brown touched Cooper Kupp's ceiling last week. I mean, AJ Brown is 6'9". Against the Colts, you could easily play him. DK Metcalf against Jacksonville, the problem is the guy throwing him the ball is Geno Smith. But maybe against Jacksonville, it could finally work out a little bit more. I thought yesterday was going to be the day, but it was not, because he only broke that one touchdown, really. Deontay Johnson, not amazing, but again, he's in that 6K range. And if Big Ben is just tossing some easy passes, that PPR adds up. But Calvin Ridley, 6'6", that's one I'm going to look at. And Keenan Allen, 6'5". Coop, can we play him in cash games? I mean, he's the guy I keep going back and forth on. I feel like he's still a really good play, and he has a decent floor at 6'5", and the ceiling we haven't even seen this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep playing him in cash games. I mean, especially on DraftKings. And I mean, he's cheap enough on FanDuel where, I mean, you're getting a wide receiver that has a good quarterback. I think one of the best quarterbacks in football throwing him the ball. His game style sets up perfectly for DK scoring. Like, he's going to have some big games. I mean, I think it's a buy low opportunity. I mean, pricing is pretty soft. So, I mean, I guess it's hard to say buy low because everyone's relatively cheap. But I'm going to keep playing him in cash. The other name I wanted to add to the conversation, who I think is just a good wide receiver, and you talked about his quarterback, Pittman. I mean, Pittman's 5.3K, and I like Pittman. I think he's a guy to kind of look at here this week too.
Yeah, no, I think Pittman's a great call. I think T.Y. Hilton's status depends too, because if T.Y. Hilton happens to be in, that is going to hurt him a little bit, but it is a nice price still, even if I think Hilton is in the game, because you could see him just not being super involved. You could see him just probably maybe playing 50% of the snaps maybe, and just kind of picking and choosing when they kind of get him in there. Devonta Smith could obviously make some sense at 5'5". I mean, this range is loaded with some guys. Brandon Cook's revenge game at 5'7", where they're going to be losing the whole time. I like him more on DK than FanDuel, because touchdowns are more important on FanDuel. DK, the PPR is more important. So I think that could make some sense. And, if Antonio Brown doesn't play, I mean, go back to Godwin at 6'4" in a game that could be competitive. Even Cortland Sutton against that terrible Washington football team defense at 6'4", I wouldn't hate it. I wonder what Tim Patrick's price is, because he's someone that at 4'7" against that Washington team, I might like him as a little bit of a value saver at the receiver position. That could be a nice plug and play.
It did say Judy is expected to play this week. That's one of the few things we got. So.
Oh, is he? Wow, that is going to mess with some things then if he's back. Okay, that's actually really important to know. So that's big. And then, we make fun of Robbie Anderson. Big T makes fun of me for him. Jacoby Myers at 5'1". I mean, did we keep plugging and playing him? I mean, I haven't, but I know Big T has.
I have too, and it's been painful. I mean, a guy that I don't know. I think his run pretty bad. I mean, you get a wide receiver throwing a pass to another wide receiver on the Patriots, and none of it included Jacoby Myers, and it's been a lot of, I just think, running bad with Jacoby Myers. Massive lead.
Touchdown called back last week, and then he had a touchdown that they held him in the end zone. That was a clear touchdown.
Yeah, that would have been a walk-in touchdown this week.
Yeah,
he's running bad. I'll keep playing him for sure.
I do think one thing to mention with Jacoby is they do have guys that when you get into the red zone, like they definitely soak up more equity than you would want, right? Like Hunter Henry, even Jonnu Smith, like will be involved in Bill Belichick red zone packages. Damian Harris, he has been a beast. And like, I expect him to continue to do that. And also the Chargers like to give up like those short yardage plays. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm definitely cheering for Jacoby Myers. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely easier. I'm on the other side, right? And, when you're on the Robbie Anderson train, you're sitting there playing him. And when you're on the side of, not playing Myers, it's easier to just say, hey, it's not a good play, but he could easily break out this week and I would not be surprised for sure. So that's definitely a guy that I think people are going to keep going back to. And I understand it. It does make some sense. And then the Bengals, I mean, you expect them to put points up on the Jets. Like Tyler Boyd at 4-8 in tournaments, I don't hate that. And even Higgins, I think you can get away with it. Not a cash game play, definitely more of a tournament option that I think you can go to. And then even like Rieger and Quez Watkins at that 4K range. In tournaments, I think they have upside against that terrible Lions team. So there's definitely guys that you can go to. And, we got some cheap guys that definitely will have some upside here, I think, going forward.
I'm finally jumping off the Tyler Boyd train for Jamar Chase in tournaments. I don't even care the price anymore. I don't know how you guys approaching that. Like Higgins grades out as the best play, but yeah, and Burrow loves him.
Yeah, he's just so damn good. I mean, it's impressive to see. I mean, he's definitely going to be, at the top of the wide receiver class for years to come. And like you said, Burrow, he loves him, so he just keeps giving him these opportunities. Price tag is now
finally
caught up.
That's good though, because now he's gonna be like. Otherwise, everyone would play him. Like he's my Justin Jefferson. Like I'm just gonna keep playing him. He's gonna grade out projection wise bad every time, and I still think he comes in 10% every week now at 7,500.
Yeah. Anything else here, Mangone?
We should talk about Odell Beckham at 4-6. No, I mean that's
he just might be done, man. He looks bad out there.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm playing him, but we have to talk about it, right? I mean, it's one of those things. If you watch an industry podcast anywhere on any site, they're gonna be like Odell Beckham 4-6. I mean, you gotta at least mention it. I think it's crazy to think. Because I think at the start of the year, was his price like 5.8 or like it was kind of cheap, and everyone was like, "Man, you won't get it this cheap the rest of the year." And it's like now we can get it at 4.6, and I don't even think people want to go to it.
He might just be dusty. I don't know. He just doesn't look good. Not running crisp routes. Like it just
shoulder too. He's always coming out with his shoulder. He's talked about. I wouldn't touch. I'm not going to touch him all year.
Yeah, I don't blame you. It's definitely brutal, but I don't know if there's any 3K guys. We can go to tight end though and talk about that real quick. I mean, just to kind of like talk about the position, like Kyle Pitts 6'3" is the most expensive one. I mean, that kind of tells the story alone, especially when Hawkinson 5'4" and then Gesicki 5K. It's like, I don't know. I think it's going to be a decent week I'm not saying you punt it, but Mo Alley Cox has been pretty involved in this Colts offense. And I know Hilton could be coming back, but at 3-3, I wouldn't hate going to him. Yeah, I mean, obviously Cole Kmet at 3-1. I played him last week and he was fine, but do I really want to trust Justin Fields? I feel like that could, not that it was a mistake, but I just felt like I was like, I should have probably just trusted Carr over, and just went more no. But it's easier to say when he falls in the end zone, right? Easily Cole Kmet could have been the guy to fall in the end zone, and then you're saying it the other way. But ultimately, I think the look at tight end is as long as unless we have values at the running back and receiver position, I think I'm going to do my best to punt the position. Like a Tyler Higbee at 4-5, like a Hunter Henry at 4-2 in a little bit of a revenge game. I think going down and not going all the way up to a Kyle Pitts or Hawkinson just makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very weak position, obviously, when you just sort of by salary and you see that Pitts is at the top and he has been better lately, but paying the full price tag for him seems a little rough this week. I like Goddard at 4.7K. The Eagles are in a pretty good spot here in Detroit, should be able to score. I like the Mo Alley Cox call. But I think overall we'll probably end up saving. You're almost forced to save money. It's just a matter of how much you save. Do you go all the way down, or do you kind of hit that mid range, that mid 4-ish range? We'll see as the week goes on.
Let me ask you a defense question. So like we are getting that point of the year where like some of these cheaper defenses, like when they're in some really like when there's not like spots that you can stomach, and like I guess you could stomach the Lions or Eagles defense. I mean, the Eagles are 2-7, Lions are like 2-3, but do you play your defense against your quarterback? That's something you might run into. And the rest of the defenses for cheap don't look amazing, but Browns D at 3K against Big Ben, who just falls down. Like I don't know. They might be like last week. I felt like you had to prioritize the Cardinals. I think in cash games, there could be a chance you're prioritizing the Browns. And then even in tournaments, they could gain a lot of ownership where it might turn into just like go up to like the Broncos against like the Redskins or the Washington football team. Maybe go to, I don't know, even go all the way up to the Rams. It is 5-1 though. It's so expensive. So I probably won't do it, but it's a rough week at defense. It looks like once again.
I think it's pretty, I see two that stand out right away. Jaguars at 2-4 and Washington at 2-1, Teddy 2 gloves, and then Geno. I think, I don't know. I doubt I pay up anywhere higher than the Jaguars personally, but maybe I'm more, I like picking on them.
It is Geno. I forgot about that. So that's fair. Washington, I'm just not as like big of a believer, but it is a 43 total. So
they looked better last week. They got to Rodgers more a little bit. Buying in on the talent with the front seven. I think there's sack upside there.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, last week I was pretty key. Like I even on the cash chart, I locked the Cardinals in there because I
agreed with that.
Not that I was trying to cop out at defense and be like, I didn't know what to play. It was more so I wanted to make sure you went there because I thought it was a priority. So I just wanted to ask and see what you guys think. But I think you're right. I forgot about Geno being with Seattle and how terrible he's been. It seems like Jaguars or even Washington football team could make sense too.
I mean, last week we prioritized the defense at 3.1K in the Cardinals. And I mean, they're in like the best possible spot. I think the spot for the Bills this week at home against Miami is not as good as that, but pretty darn close. You're only paying $200 more. I'm not saying I'm going to prioritize them because I do think there are some cheap ones that you can play. Last week, there just really wasn't any cheap ones that I felt comfortable with. But if I have a team I'm comfortable with and I can get the Bills at 3-3, I'm going to do that. The football team at 2-1, I agree with. You got the Jaguars. I think you can even do the Seahawks at 2-8. I think there's a lot of options actually at defense this week. But if I can make the Bills work, I probably will. I mean, this is a spot where I think they probably should be like 4K maybe and not 3-3. So I don't know. I kind of like the Bills, but like I said, I don't hate some of these cheaper ones either. But it's defense. It shouldn't be last week I think was the exception where we were prioritizing for the first time all season.
Yep. So I 100% agree.
Anything to add here to the DraftKings conversation?
No, similar to FanDuel. I like Hurt. The only thing is really right now Hurts is my favorite. Like we were talking about it earlier, Hurts is definitely my favorite on DraftKings right now, whereas Josh Allen on FanDuel, tight end just is awful this week. So it's going to be something I fill out kind of later. I've paid up pretty much every week, I think, so far on FanDuel. And I don't know who it's going to be, Hawkinson, Pitts, but I'm not going to fill it out or prioritize it.
Yeah, Hurts on DK. It's just a bad price, especially when we're missing all these other top quarterbacks. Hurts needed to be closer to 8. Allen should have been up. I mean, they missed an opportunity here at quarterback, but I do really like Hurts at 7-2.
And they're still going to be below 50%. Like I'm still amazed at the ownership on cash games on both sites. Actually, it's spread out more than I remember in previous
always,
years.
Man. At quarterback, it's always spread out. But like you said, this year it even seems like more so than in the past. Mangone, any kind of final thoughts on the slate, FanDuel, DraftKings, or anything else?
No. I mean, I think it's going to be a good week. I don't mind these weeks at all. So should be fun. Hopefully we don't get like too much news where it's just like, hey, like you play this like crappy 3K running back or whatever, and then like everything falls into place. I like when it's a little fun and challenging. So that's why we play, right? We still, even though we want to make money too, it is fun to kind of build lineups on Saturday and Sunday and break it all down. And I do always love that part too. So can't wait to see what we can get up, create for the people, and bring the winners.
All right, Title, any final thoughts here before we get on out?
No, it's fun talking. It was fun talking a little Survivor. Hopefully we keep going. And a lot of football content the rest of the week. Injuries, Miles Sanders, different stuff pops up. So cast chart, playbook, it'll all be up.
Man, I didn't mention it throughout the show, but please hit the like button on your way out. Hit the subscribe button. Helps us to continue to bring you guys these shows for free on a weekly basis. We'll have a free NBA show coming up today, 4:45 Eastern. Make sure you come on over and tune in to that as well. We'll have all our NFL content coming out, dropping throughout the week. We'll be back on Thursday talking cash game specific. That is part of the premium product over here at Run Pure Sports. You can use that code RPSNBA15 to get 15% off your monthly payment for life. But that's going to do it here for the Week 8 preview show. For Title, for Mangone, I'm Hoop. We'll be back next week.